So I didn't think I would come on here and make a video talking about this awful subscription service that a lot of people are talking about. It's been taking the internet by storm from what I'm aware of. A lot of popular content creators, including Optimus and Yong, have been talking about it, and it's been getting pretty crazy, especially with the response from a lot of people online. Just expressing their worries about this subscription service and how it just feels very anti-consumer and everything. And before we get into this entire video and everything, personally, I don't have a problem with subscription services at all. I mean, you can look at things at like Xbox Game Pass, for example, and they have some pretty decent value over there and everything. And you got things like EA Play as well, which I get it, you want to offer something for the players and everything. But however, it all really depends on how the subscription services are handled. Now, this is a little quick one-on-one thing to learn about me personally, Mr. Nightwing here. Like I've already said, I don't have a problem with subscription services, but it just all depends on the way it's handled. And I personally don't bother with subscription services at all because I just don't really have a need for any of them at all. But there are some people out there that do genuinely enjoy some subscription services because there are some positives to having them, and there are also some negatives as well. But unfortunately, the way that Ubisoft wants to do the subscription service is just rubbing people the wrong way, and this is, I don't want to say the iceberg moment or like the Trojan horse moment for the game industry, but if this goes through successfully, then this is gonna leave a massive, massive stain on a lot of players, including myself, because this is a problem that has been going on with the game industry for a while, where now we're starting to head towards a digital only future, and physical media has been slowly dying out. I've been hearing reports and rumors how Walmart is going to stop selling physical games of Xbox pretty soon. And hopefully that's false, but that's just what I've been hearing. I could be wrong, but hopefully the physical games are still sticking around. And this is a massive problem that a lot of people have because they want to be able to own a physical product of that game, for example. Like, let's just say if the newest Call of Duty, for example, just came out and you want to be able to physically own that product and you go to the store and buy it, you can play that game whenever. Now, some of you folks can't tell, but in my hands right now, I have a physical copy of Wargroove, and it's a small indie developer game, and this is honestly one of my favorite games of all time, surprisingly, and I have it for the Nintendo Switch. And I can play this game whenever I want. Let me just put this away for a second. There we go. So, this is the problem that I have with games going fully digital. When you try to buy a game digitally, whether it be from a subscription service, whether it be from the digital storefronts from Xbox Market or the PlayStation Store, whatever, if you buy a game digitally, you don't realistically own that game. You're just buying a temporary license for that certain game. Now, there's this article that I want to read to you folks that talks a little bit about Ubisoft's plans with their subscription service. So, this article comes from gizmodo.com. I'm going to read it to you all, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on this after. Players will need to feel a fair bit more comfortable with the idea of subscription models and to a greater extent, not actually owning anything they buy. This week, Ubisoft, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, I'm sorry, its entire subscription model, but to sell players and the industry on its new move. One company executive misconstrued, I think is how you pronounce it, why gamers and developers might not be so keen to pony up on monthly for their games. Ubisoft's head of subscriptions, Philippi Tremblay, I apologize if I pronounced the name wrong, offered a fair few inconspicuous comments in an interview with G-Biz, but then said something that could be particularly upsetting for players who long been taken for a ride by a largely anti-consumer games industry. Tremblay said players are used to owning games they play, but they have gotten comfortable not owning their music or movie collection. His main point: why shouldn't players get comfortable with not owning products they pay for and instead accept the streaming model as a whole? Okay, so let's talk about this. So, from if I'm understanding this correctly, and if I'm reading this correctly, and someone in the comment section, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is the way that I understand the direction that Ubisoft wants to go down. They want to put their games behind a subscription model to where, let's just say they put a couple of games on their subscription service and you pay a certain amount of money a month. And if that subscription comes to an end, you don't get to realistically play those games. And this is the problem that I see personally. Why would you want to pay a subscription service to play a video game when you can just go to the store and buy a physical product instead? Why in the world should we pay, like, let's just say, like $30 a month, for example, for a subscription service to play the newest Call of Duty when we can just go to the store and buy a physical copy of the game instead, and therefore saving us some money instead of buying the subscription service? Because the way that I see this is this just feels like a marketing scam and it just feels like an anti consumer move. Now, some of you folks may remember this, but last year, a couple months ago, I made a video on this similar subject where if you where Ubisoft was going to take away your games if you don't log into your Ubisoft account within a certain time frame. But if you log in within a certain time frame, then Ubisoft would just be like, "Nope, you're still active on our Ubisoft Play or whatever. You still keep your games and everything." And people were definitely up in arms with Ubisoft, just like, why is this even a thing? And here we are again in 2024, where now we are dealing with yet a similar issue. And yet, this issue is where if we don't pay money for this subscription service that Ubisoft wants to do, we don't get access to those games. Like, I just don't really understand Ubisoft's thought process on this entire thing. And this just doesn't seem consumer friendly because if the subscription service ends, you don't get to play those games. It's just mind boggling to me because this is another problem I have with digital distribution where if a subscription service ends, you don't get access to that product. Or let's just say if you want to get a game digitally and one day the servers get shut down for that platform and you want to try to reinstall that certain game, you won't be able to get access to that certain game in your library if the servers for that platform get shut down. And it's just making people even more worried about the future for the game industry, where physical media is pretty much on the verge of collapsing and it's pretty much dead. People are just getting more worried about how they're going to preserve their games in the future. And I'm definitely pro game preservation when it comes to playing video games and everything. I think game preservation is definitely an important part for the game industry. But game companies like Ubisoft and like other corporate companies like Activision, they don't really seem to care for that. But that's a topic for another day. But the point of this video is Ubisoft is going down yet another terrible route that is gonna make people uncomfortable and push them away. And this is just a shame because I liked Ubisoft for their Assassin's Creed games. But seeing a move like this from Ubisoft, it just makes me hate the company now and make me not want to bother with their products anymore. Seeing what they're doing right now, this is just a spit right in the consumer's face. Just right in our eyes, man. And this is just not acceptable. So hopefully Ubisoft gets a reality check and somewhat tries to backtrack on this. But unfortunately, knowing corporations like this, they're just going to stick with their guns and they're just going to stick with this awful idea going forward. And that's just a shame. So, with this being said, thank you everyone for watching and for listening. And until next time, I'm talking about Ubisoft's awful subscription idea for video games, and I'll see you all later.